think today's topic is mental chatter. And when you start meditating, I think one of the first things that really you start to notice more is the fact that the mind is actually there's a lot going on. It's not even like a little trickle. Sometimes it's like a deluge. And the more you observe it, the more you seem to kindle it, and the more it seems active. So you're like confused, like what's going on. I thought the idea of meditating is to calm the mind, but then it seems to do exactly the opposite. So what is going on? So the thing is this, that when we sit down to meditate, that's when we are kind of physically we are cutting ourselves off of all the other regular activities that we are used to. So when the body and the mind is used to doing things in a regular way, then it goes about doing things that the way it does. And the mind's nature is not to be still. It's what it does. But when you sit down to meditate, that's why we use an object of meditation, so that it's not like all this mental activity is going to go quiet. It is just that we find one object that we can divert all that attention onto that one thing. So it's a technique that we use since we understand how this mind operates, and it's one thing that really works well. But the question is, what is all this mental chatter? So let me just give a little bit of thought around it, and then we can go back into our meditation. So if you generally start getting into the habit of noticing this whole process of your mental activities, you will find that you are actually not doing any of it. All of this just happens on its own. Thoughts arise, and then uh, one thought leads to another, leads to another, that leads to another. This is called associative thinking. And this is the way the brain is wired. We look at one thing, then we remember another, then we remember another, and we go on from there. This is associative thinking. So the very nature of it is it will the more you pay attention to it, the more it's going to generate that kind of thinking. But if we were to look at little closer, and this I want to go a little deeper into this topic, because you will find that the focus of our meditation really is to be with our own selves. And the question many a times we ask is, what am I? Who am I? What I call myself, right? And being able to separate everything out from that self. This is the main focus of meditation. In its most advanced form, this is what meditation really is, so that uh, you can know for your own self who you truly are. This is what meditation is about. It's as to put it in simple words, but it's not a simple thing. This is sometimes the sadhana of people for all their lives, right? But this is what it basically is fundamentally. Now, that being the case, think of all of your experiences. How do you experience anything? Think about that. You have sources of input coming in from the various sense organs: sight, smell, taste, touch, all of that. And there is a mind that is making sense of it, actually interpreting that entire deluge of information flow to really make sense of all of it to you. That is what the mind does. You have no way of interacting with everything around you. There is how will you interact with? It's not like when you smell a freshly baked apple pie that That pie is not entering your brain. It's only sense inputs that come in. There's a sight, there is smell. So these are raw inputs. Over and above raw inputs, there is another thing that's going on. The moment you smell that freshly baked pie, your mind starts to construct the entire experience for you, from the time your pleasant memories of maybe your mother baking that pie in a certain location at a certain time when there are certain people, and all of, not just information anymore, you've gone to feelings and emotions. This is how we experience things. And have you noticed something? All of it is in your mind. All of it. Even the light rays that fall on your eyes through the cornea, neatly focused through the crystalline lens, falling on the retina, the rods and cones start to interpret the various aspects of visual texture, from colors to shades, that getting converted into digital information that nerves can carry, and the optical nerve carries it and supplies that information to the brain, and the brain is now making sense of that visual input. So much going on with one of the sources of input. Think about it now. That entire experience of that apple pie that we talked about. Can you imagine what is going on there? It's crazy when you think about it. So here's the part that I want to point you to, because this is it's a very significant and a very deep insight. So you can leave it there when you meditate, because this is important to understand. And I'll just give a reference to, this is from the Chandogya Upanishad. It's very interesting. The son has gone and done 12 years of all his study of all the Vedas and everything. And the father comes and asks, so what is it? Have you learned? Have you learned about consciousness? Have you learned about that which, knowing which you can know everything? And the son is like, what are you talking about? And so the father goes on to teach the child. It's very interesting. He uses the word that what you see is vacharambanam, vikaro namadeyam. What he says is, everything has its origin in speech. It's pretty interesting if you think about it. Everything that you experience in the whole universe has its origin in speech. When he says vacharambanam, he means that. Now think about it. The moment you have an object, then when it gets a form, then you give it a name, and it becomes available for you to experience it. Going back to our experience metaphor, think about it. When something is manifested, it has a name and a form. That is when it is available for you for experience. Now, the idea of pointing it to the fact that it's a name and form is to say that there is an underlying reality, which is what we are trying to investigate. That is the idea. So just keep that in mind. Another way to look at it is, look, this is a topic that will continue for a long time, but this is just I would say, tip of the iceberg, right? Another interesting way to think about this whole scenario is, think of a child that sees a bird for the first time. Think about that. Now, the child let us say the child has no reference to, nobody has told the child about a bird or shown picture books or explained what a bird is and nothing, none of that, right? The child is seeing the bird for the first time. That is a pure raw information, raw, absolutely raw inflow of information, and the child is actually seeing the bird. That is when the child is actually seeing the bird. Now, the next time, and then there is a learning process. Probably the parent is there, and they say, "Oh, this is a crow, this is a pigeon, this is a sparrow, and this is what sparrows do, and look what they do, this is what they eat, this is where they live, and blah blah blah." There's a lot of stuff going on. So the next time the child sees that bird, it is with this entire package of information that goes along with it. So in meditation, what we are trying to do is to cut out all this other noise that happens. So when you see the bird, you only see the bird. Think about this. It's fall weather. We were just saying earlier that you'll go out and have a nice walk in a trail sometime. Try this. When you actually see that tree with its beautiful leaves, just see it without the mental chatter. That is when you're actually seeing it, right? So to summarize the whole thing, mental chatter is the very nature of the mind. It will do what it does. But when we meditate, what we are trying to do is to cut that mental chatter out by focusing on one thing. So today what we will do is, our meditation is going to, it's basically meditating on a mantra, which is Om. But between every Om, there is a bell. There's a sound of a bell, right? So in fact, the longer and more complicated the mantra, it is actually easier to meditate. The more you meditate in silence, the more you're moving towards total silence, the harder it is. You'll find the mental chatter is much, much, much more. Right? That's the way nature of the mind. Until you become really experienced meditators, where you're able to sit in silence for as long as possible, right? So think of the range of activity here. So when you're starting off, the more your mantra has more words, maybe some tune, maybe all of that, and you have an actual object of meditation. In fact, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, he says, start with an actual physical object and look at it. So looking at a flame, for example, is a very good starting meditation, because you're actually looking at something physical. Then you go into subtler and subtler. So then the next time you meditate, you're just meditating on an image of the flame. So it's that's how you do it. So when we start, we will always have some mantra, some music, and so what you do today is